Hey guys, welcome to another live She Knows Arsenal transfer news with DELUDED GOONER. You guys have been asking for weeks, where's DELUDED? Where's DELUDED? I'm like, he's not answering my texts.
I
So
don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. I was in my own world. Listen, I can't confirm or deny that. I'm back. I appreciate the love. I didn't know I was missed like that. She's lying. There's no proof.
fine, fine,
Wow.
fine. But we're in for a really good show. So make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel. And usually when we do these shows, we go on each other's channel back to back. So if you guys missed the live stream that we did a couple of minutes ago after this, just go over there and make sure you guys subscribe to his channel and like all of his videos too, because he has great content.
Oh, you're being nice to me. Wow. Wow.
You know
Since
what?
we're being nice, great intro. That's what I was gonna say first. It's like, oh, that's a good intro before you threw me under a bus. Damn.
I made that intro.
Appreciate that.
Thank you. I made that intro in like 2 seconds. Like I was like, let's just throw this shit together.
Nice,
But
good,
thank
man.
you. Yeah, I am cautiously optimistic about Nketiah going to Nottingham Forest. I really don't want to I need to see like a here we go first. I'm scared that it's gonna fall apart or something. But do you think that'd be a good move for him? 30 million, from our perspective, I know we're like excited, for him to potentially go, but is that a good move for Nketiah? Blah blah blah. What are your thoughts on him leaving?
Well, my thoughts on him leaving, I think it's overdue, in it. It's the best for all parties. He needs to go somewhere he's got more importance. We need to obviously bring money in and potentially sign an attacker and go from having players that are bit part players to people that can actually help us challenge, which unfortunately Ted he's not. I think he can leave with his head held high. You're going to make the club 30, 35 million. You've come from Hale End. You've been capped. You've scored a winner against United. You bagged a hat trick. You've won the number 14. You've got 100K a week. And so I think you can leave with your head held high. I think people are very harsh on Eddie and Nketiah. I don't think he's the guy. I don't think he's ever been that. I do think he's past his sell-by date, but I think he's someone that people harshly treat. So best of luck, man. For Nottingham Forest, I'm not sure, man, because what they got Chris Wood, they've got a 1 year or something like that. At this moment in time, it's not clear you're going to play ahead of them, but they must have assured him that you're going to get opportunity. So wish you all the best, man. And like you said at the start of asking me about Eddie, like you want to be cautiously optimistic. You really want to hear a here we go. You want to hear there's no hiccups with personal terms and medicals and things of that ilk. But it's been a long time coming, man. So yeah, long may it continue. Hopefully we can get, the likes of Fabio Vieira, Kivio and Ramsdale out the door as well.
Fair enough. For those of you guys who are like, what's going on? I think earlier today, Ornstein had spoken about Nketiah to Nottingham Forest. And then a couple of other people have kind of piggybacked off of the back of that and said that they're close to signing him for 30 million pounds, which is a really good deal for us. I know Fabrizio Romano had said earlier that they were still talking to Jimenez. So that's why I'm cautious about like getting too excited just yet, but it feels like it's moving in the right direction. And so, like I was saying before, a couple of days ago, I know that we're all going back and forth about it, but I think Eddie is worth between 25 and 30 million pounds. I just always felt like that was a good fee. And if Edu was able to get that on top of Emile Smith-Rowe, I think that would show that we're moving in the right direction for sales. We were talking about this on your channel about, the criticism around Edu. Why do you think there's so much criticism around Edu and what he's doing for the club? And do you at least feel like we're moving in the right direction in terms of sales? Because that's been a big topic of conversation over the last couple of windows.
I mean, it's a difficult one because, we can see what Mikel Arteta is doing on the football pitch. We can see the players. We can't necessarily see all the dynamics that go towards Edu. Of course, I understand fans' frustration because, the club or the journalist that B was speaking about war chess and we're signing difference makers and we're doing this and we're doing that. And it hasn't actually come to fruition at this moment in time. And obviously there's still a lot of unanswered questions. There's unanswered questions about midfield. I think we both agree. It looks like Mikel Merino will be an Arsenal player, but until it's signed off, we don't know. Up front and on the left-hand side or as a couple of attackers, it's nobody knows. I think people are harsh on Edu. I definitely feel, there's stuff he could improve in terms of sales and the speed of sales. You look at Eddie Nketiah and Reece Nelson. Did they have to be on the money that they're on? Not that I care because it doesn't come out of my pocket. But at the same time, and also as well, you went to Brazil, as I said on my platform, you went to Brazil and you came back with Marquinhos. So do you have the contacts that we need? Are you able to pull a rabbit out of the hat that maybe a more experienced director is able to do? But then at the same time, you know, if Mikel Arteta is asking you for X, Y, and Z and you're doing it, can I criticize you? If you are, which I don't, presenting Mikel Arteta with options and he's not receptive to it, can I really get you? These are questions I can't really get. But as you said brilliantly on my platform, I think Mikel Arteta is better at the management thing than Edu appears at as a director of football. And I think while I guess in the structure, technically Edu's ahead of Mikel Arteta, he'll be the one to go. I can probably guarantee without any knowledge of the situation in that players like Kai Havertz, I don't think everybody unanimously agreed with his signing. I think Edu and Mikel Arteta, apologies, pushed for that and got it done. I think at the time of us signing someone like David Raya, on the face of it, there was no need because Ramsdale was doing his thing. Mikel Arteta probably pushed for that. So I do feel he's damned if he does, damned if he doesn't. I do feel that as much as I rate Mikel Arteta, and I'd rather Arteta stay than Edu stay if it came to it, I feel there's when things are going well, it's all Mikel Arteta. And then when things are going wrong or there's areas of improvement, it seems like we can't criticize anybody. We can criticize everybody apart from Arteta. And the club make a song and dance about collaboration. So for me, everybody shares the W's and L's, but yeah, man, Edu could do a lot better. It is frustrating. It isn't the most of optimistic landscapes with the start of the season, considering what we've done in the last 2 years.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's just hard because you can't see all the ins and outs of every deal, every contract. It's hard to know if there were other factors that made Edu make certain decisions, you know. He wants to support Mikel as much as possible, and that's clear, and you want your club to back your manager, but equally, does there need to be a grown-up in the room sometimes when we make some of these signings that don't necessarily make sense or don't necessarily push us further ahead, you know, in the right direction? And so I think my main criticism around Edu is more about maybe not Edu in particular, but the relationship between Mikel and Edu, and is there a way that, you know, Edu could be a little bit more harsh with Mikel and tell him no when he wants another left back, when he wants another goalkeeper? You know, I'm sorry, y'all, but we cannot spend 30 million on a backup. Period. I don't care what Inaki Kanya says about him. I don't care that Arteta wants to make sure that, you know, if Raya were to go down, no. I need Edu to say no. You're getting Bentley. We're bringing back Matty Ryan. Like, I'm sorry, you know, and I just feel like maybe that's my concern, is that there's not enough grownups in the room and you have a bunch of kids driving a car, you know, and nobody really knows what they're doing. And so, yeah, we may get there, but are we going to get there in one piece? Like, you know, so yeah, I think that's kind of where I'm at with. And I know some of you guys want to talk about Merino. Kai is saying that Matteo Moretto, or whatever his name is, pinned the Merino. It looks like it might be getting done today. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. But I do want to, in light of speaking about Eddie, there was some, you know, I think I forget who posted it, but I think it was a guy from TalkSport maybe was saying that there's no immediate plans for Arsenal to replace Eddie if he were to go to Nottingham Forest, which I know is making people panic. We need an attacker. Like, we need an attacker. Maybe it's not a striker, maybe it's a winger. What is your temperature on the need for an attacker? And if you had to choose one, you know, or the attributes of the attacker, what would they be? What would you be looking for that's going to take us to the next level?
I mean, ideally, you want someone like Gyökeres up front. Even I'm not saying you need to drop Kai Havertz and whatnot because he's doing quite well. I mean, we'd all have loved Nico Williams. That's not going to happen. I'd love a winger that has pace, that's devastating on the transition, ideally able to play on the left and the right, similar to Trossard. And I think every Arsenal vacancy, you need another attacker, you know, regardless of what's going on with Eddie and Nelson, and based on him playing off the right-hand side, Fabio Vieira, you need another attacker. You know, I hope Gabriel Jesus not only does the business on the pitch, but stays fit to be able to be in consideration. If he gets injured, then you're just relying on Kai Havertz. Now, Kai Havertz's injury record seems spotless, but he's a human being and they could happen at any time. We need an attacker, Jess, man. There isn't anything that you haven't said that I can't add anything to it. An attacker is vital. Like, we need another one. Like, the burden is all on Bukayo Saka. Even if nobody left, all the options that were here last season, we still could make a case of a striker and a winger coming in. So I'm not really panicking about them saying replacing Eddie Nketiah, because I don't know how many games he started. He's not really he's just on the peripheral, really. But we need an attacker. An attacker is vital, really and truly. Yes, we got 91 goals, but imagine how much better we'd be if Saka is having an off day, if Trossard isn't on the pitch or is injured, if Martinelli's not at it, if Jesus ain't at it, if Kai hasn't got his shooting boots on. We need one. And again, we've spoken about it. Yes, we got 91 goals, and I'm not criticizing how we did it, because we've improved year in, year out. But Saka got a bunch of those. Trossard got a bunch of those, and he wasn't really starting. Kai Havertz got a decent amount, and that was in the second half of the season. So when you start to break down who got these goals, when these goals actually came, because a lot of them did come via set pieces, not criticizing it. A lot of them did come when we was battering teams in the early part of the year. Are we really as solid up top as we are? I think, we've got the defense, we've got the whole defensive outlook, we've got the defensive options, midfield on paper, and I'm sure we'll get onto that. There could be improvements, but there's question marks, and there are question marks up front. Now, I know, there's the striker market is poor and whatnot, but do we take a leaf out of the Liverpool book? As I said on my platform, does Saka become our Salah? Do you go and find our very own Mane on the left? And of course, they're two different players, but Kai Havertz is our Firmino. I don't know, man, but I'm just happy I'm a fan and I'm not the one making the decisions.
Yeah, for sure. I think we had spoken about this on my channel the other day too, about when you don't have a prolific number 9, your wingers are so important. And I'm not saying that Kai will not. Yeah, I'm not saying that Kai won't score them 20 goals. Like, I know everybody's projecting him to do so, but I don't think his main quality in the team is just to score goals. He's a facilitator. So the wingers are super important. I've been pretty vocal about feeling like we need another winger, and not necessarily just somebody on the right, but somebody that can play on the left, because I'm not 100% sure Martinelli's going to go back to 2022, 2023 form. What is your feeling on the conversations around Martinelli? Because 2 years ago, we felt like the winger pairing that we had was going to take us into the next 6-7 seasons and was going to be our Mane and Salah partnership. Now there's questions around Martinelli. Is it harsh? Is it just about the composition of the left-hand side and the relationships and losing Granit Xhaka? Or should we make sure that if he doesn't get into that form, that we bring somebody in just in case? Trust him or don't trust him?
Martinelli. I mean, I'll always trust Martinelli. I'll always back Martinelli. I do think you're right in that, the left-hand side's been a bit of a mess. There hasn't been stability. Those are factors in Martinelli's game. But when I remove that, I don't think it goes far, because I could argue, as much as the conversation on the left is about Martinelli, Trossard's had to deal with that, and Trossard may even be even better if we had stability on that side, and he still managed to make it work. I don't worry about Martinelli, but I worry about Martinelli, and what I mean by that is, I've got blind optimism. That's my guy, but you're either going to be like this for the rest of your career, or you're going to go to the next level. I personally think you need to get your head up, really and truly, and you just need to take time a bit. Like, there was an incident in the Wolves game. I can't remember if it was the first or the second half, but we broke down the left with Zinchenko and Declan Rice. Martinelli got into the box, and he had a shot that led to a corner, to be fair, but if he got his head up, he probably could have found Declan Rice, and Declan Rice probably has his first goal of the season. So, yeah, I think Nelly needs to do a lot more. I do think there's a lot of scapegoatingism, but going back to what we said in that, if we move away from the rebuild and talented players and we look at City and we're like, okay, cool, what questions can we answer? We know there'll be a great big problem if Bukayo Saka does not get 20 goals and assist contributions or something of that ilk. Kai Havertz has the capacity to score goals, but I don't know if he'll do it. Trossard, I don't know if he'll get the opportunity, let alone replicate what he did last season. Martinelli, the last 2 seasons prior to the one we're in now, are very conflicting. So these are unanswered questions when you're trying to win a title. And it's a sad thing in that we know we'll score goals, but who will get the goals? And like people are quick to tell us, we got 91 goals and we can't answer that. So it's a very unique criticism, or better, not even criticism. It's a very unique situation to be in, man. But Martinelli needs to get back to it, man. Only he can save himself at this point, in my opinion.
I agree. Like, I think this is why, conversations online about, our players can be they're difficult because I think people get into their corners and start fighting, and the conversations are
Exactly.
more nuanced. They're usually more in the gray area. Martinelli has not been helped by the left-hand side. We know that. Like, he hasn't been. Like, anybody who thinks our left-hand side makes sense is lying. We primarily attack on the right-hand side or build up and everything, and the left-hand side is like a ghost town, and the balance is just not there. So you can give Martinelli some grace in that respect. Do I feel like, not having a balanced left-hand side means that his decision making can be like ignored? No. I think his decision making is where I'm looking like, okay, are you going to make the right decision to shoot when you should, cross it back, things like that? And can you execute those passes and those crosses correctly? Rewatching the Wolves game, he was nowhere near as poor as I feel like people were saying he was. Even I think was saying on the post match that I felt like his game was rough. He wasn't as bad as I thought, but he's nowhere near the player that he was in 2022, 2023. And that's the worry. So I agree with Sparata here that Martinelli criticism is justified, although in some cases it's a touch excessive.
Bang on.
Go ahead.
I said bang on. The guy's bang on the money. That comment's bang on the money.
Yeah. That being said, I don't think we should risk our season on the backs of hoping that two forwards get back into a form that they had 2 years ago in Jesus and Martinelli. So that leads me into the Sterling conversation. I feel like Arsenal fans are linking Sterling to Arsenal. Nobody is linking Sterling to Arsenal but Arsenal fans. Now, I have seen some Chelsea in the nose saying it, but they're in the nose. Who knows what's going on, really? Would you take him?
Boy, yes and no, man. Yes, because beggars can't be choosers, which is a dangerous territory to get in if you're kind of desperate. I mean, and again, I don't like ifs, especially if you're trying to fight for a league title. If Mikel Arteta can get him back to the Sterling that he could be, where of course, he was frustrating, but he can make something happen, then I'm all for it, because at 29, it's now or never. Bought a couple of players from Chelsea, so maybe the good relations could work. But as you know yourself, he's 29. There's not too much longevity. He needs to perform. Obviously, you've got the tag of winning titles. You're going to be on big wages. Whether we get you on loan and pay some of your wages or a loan fee, we're going to be in issues. Or if we buy you permanently, it's crazy. I know a lot of Arsenal fans will look at, the Kai Havertz's and half of these players that, you look at Mudryk, you look at Sterling, the players that look like they need a bit of an arm. Mikel Arteta is clearly a great gaffer, but he's not invincible. I think many people get caught up in this trap of thinking he can turn every bit of dust into gold. So I would say yes and no, man. And I'm more saying yes of what Sterling was than the Sterling at this point. So it's when you're indecisive, it's probably best to not make a decision, really. And if we're going into the Sterling category, it's like what you said on my platform. It's like, do you start looking at the Bakayokos, the guys that probably will frustrate and things of that ilk, but they're young, they're impressionable, there's more of an upside.
Yeah, I'm very kind of like with Mode Man here. Are we really that desperate? And so people in the comment section are obviously appalled by the disrespect to Sterling. Sterling is very well loved by Premier League fans. He's so well loved. Almost every fan base has some sort of love for Sterling. And I think he is disrespected quite a bit considering how well he's done at multiple clubs. That being said, I cannot ignore the last 2 years at Chelsea. And it could be the case that he's just in a bad environment, but he could also be slowing down. We don't want to give Raheem Sterling, this was supposed to be his last big contract at Chelsea. We don't need to get another Willian situation where we're giving somebody who should have had their last big contract another one when he's on huge wages. And I would have questions around whether or not it's going to work out, despite me knowing that he's a really good player. So in the comments, I do want to know what you guys think about Sterling potentially, but also the Sanes, the Rafinhas, because that's pretty much the group of players, the cases that are being linked to us, even loosely or, by other fans. Is it the case that we're being maybe too picky and these players are better than what we think? Or should we be avoiding these types of players because when we got these players in the past, it hasn't worked out? If you had to choose between Sane, Sterling, and let's say Chiesa, which one would you choose?
What did you say? Sterling, Sane, Chiesa. Do you know what? Sterling's probably my favorite on that list just because of what he's
Mm,
done in the Premier League. You know what? I think Chiesa would probably be the best fit for us because he can play on the left, the right, and up front. But there's question marks over his injury record. I mean, you could say the same about Sane, but I would say Sane, man, just because of the basis of whatever people have to say about him. You know, he showed us against us in the Champions League what he could still be about. I just think he's probably got the skill set I'm looking for in terms of pace and whatnot. Of the names you said there, I'm leaning towards Sane. I'm with the Sane thing.
yeah. Sane, he does have a little bit of the well, I mean, he cooked us. He was making things happen out of
Coach
nothing.
Kivior as well.
He did. He cooked Kivior, but I could cook Kivior if I really wanted to.
So why do you keep defending him?
1v1. So, yeah, but Sterling, Sane, Rafinha, Chiesa, those are the players that are being linked to us. They're not exciting. They would make us better. I said on deadline day, if that was all I was offered, I would take it. But why are we even talking about these players? Why are we not talking about Kvaratskhelia? Why are we not talking about Leao? Why are we not talking about these types of players? Going into this window, there was a lot of talk about war chest, big signing. How have we gotten to this place where we're not talking about a massive game-changing signing and we're digging around Bayern and Chelsea's leftovers to get us over the line?
Boy, I'd have no clue, man. But half of those war chest signings and whatnot, they're gonna cost a lot of money, which we've shown we'll get our purse strings out when it makes sense. You know, I know Kai Havertz isn't a big signing, but on the basis of that 55 to 65 million pounds, we showed we'll do it. Declan Rice obviously cost a lot of money. We either don't think there's enough value for money, we're not necessarily convinced. Maybe we've got a plan, which I don't know because I don't work for Mikel Arteta, that we don't know about, or maybe the money just doesn't stretch that much, really and truly. Like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't know. And even with the big money signings, like Rafael would be a good player, but he's far from perfect. Like, I think the club has to be 100% convinced. Obviously, it's dangerous territory, and I think it's just a case of like you said, like we start off the season, pre-season, being linked with the Leaos and all them guys. Then you kind of look at Rashfords and Sancho's and Sterling's and players that probably have one foot out the door. Then you're looking at the Bakayokos and the Doku kind of ilk, not necessarily the player at City, players that are young and impressionable and whatnot. But yeah, man, it's not looking like the summer of signing curtain raisers. Now, in hindsight, they could, as I said on my platform, like you look at Liverpool at the time of the players that they signed, apart from Alisson and Van Dijk, who was really held in high regards. Trent came from the academy. Ronaldo was at Newcastle, decent player. Mane, people rated him. He was at Southampton, but didn't take him in like that. Salah was a Chelsea flop. Robertson had back-to-back relegations. You buy smart. Firmino was seen as a decent player, to be fair. But you buy smartly and you marry them all together, they're all quite decent players. Even in the early days of City, really, to a slight degree. I say early. Sane was seen as a decent player. Kevin De Bruyne had that tax about him. Sane was seen as an okay player. I don't know, man. I just hope the club are doing what needs to be done. Mikel Arteta said in February we've got one of the smallest squads. He also said the other day that in March and April we have talks around our team. Obviously, he knows his team more than us, but everyone can see what another winger would do. And I think even if you look back in last December, I mean, it's one thing when the players are doing their job, but you go back to December when we weren't picking up 3 points and the same players were out there. That tells you who he rates. I think everyone can see a central midfielder would be great. Everyone can see a striker would be great. And another inside forward. I'm not against bringing in a left back because we were told bringing in a left back. Yeah. And again, we have to take our time with Timber. Tomiyasu's unfortunately an injury issue. Zinchenko and Kivior have their own issues in their own. So I'll shut my mouth until literally 10 days time with August the 31st deadline. But it's hardly one of optimism right now, just based off what we can see as ignorant fans.
Fair. Bernard is saying because Edu is incapable of talking to those players. And I know it's fashionable to talk shit about Edu, and I do have my like concerns about him. I'm not sure that it's that we can't talk to these players. I genuinely think when we got that early report in the window about KSE not wanting to give money anymore, and they wanted us to sell this summer. I just think it's just that simple. I think if KSC tell you they're not going to give you, the last couple of windows we've, started off with
Spent the
150
bag.
million, or 200 million from last season because that's what we spent without really selling anything. I think them cutting that off instantly makes it impossible for Arsenal to go out there and get those top quality players because the money is not there. We already were promised to buy Raya. That's 30 million right at the beginning of the window. Boom, bam, out. So having to sell first has made it more difficult. And I think that instantly puts you in the category when you can't get an Isak, you can't get a Bruno Guimaraes, you can't get those types of players. It means that you're going to have to do those Trossard, Jorginho signings. And that's kind of where we're at. That's not what people want. It's not what I want. It's not what I was promised. But, we got to do the best with what we can do. And that's why the selling is so important because we don't have the money to just throw out there. So I'm not sure it's Edu's incapable of talking to those players. The money is probably not there, which is really unfortunate. And so we kick the can down the road another season. Speaking of depth signings, we look like we're close to sealing the signing of Mikel Merino from Real Sociedad. Thoughts on the player, just in terms of his quality and his level, and how do you think he will be used within the squad?
Be interesting because he can play as an 8 and a 6. We've technically seen that with Declan Rice. There could be games where they're both kind of playing in the same role or different denominations. You'd imagine Declan Rice moves to the right. I think it's a bit like, as I was giving the example with Liverpool, I think there's some Arsenal fans that are using language around outsmarting the market. I don't quite agree with that. He's got a year left on his deal. He seems like he can bring something to the table. Likewise, as you said, when we've become accustomed in the last 2 years to the spending and Declan Rice and Gabriel Jesus at the time of signing Jesus, people are going to not really give Moreno a chance, where I don't think it's a ceiling raiser. Maybe in hindsight, he shows that. I think it raises the floor in. I think, he's shown off the ball he's a good player. He's obviously 28, so he knows the roles that he's playing in. You could see how he kind of helps add some stability on that left-hand side. He played, 30, 40 times last season. When are we going to say that about Jorginho and Partey? Yeah. This is the thing. Maybe even Declan Rice can get a rest. He's obviously good in the air. He wins his tackles. I think in theory, he's all sorted to thrive in England, with obviously bringing that Spanish sort of tiki-taka, short-range passing and long-range passing and running in behind. So I'm happy with it, man. I don't think it's one where I sit there and I'm like, wow, we're closer to City. But I'm happy with his individual signing. Saying that, though, the man needs to actually sign for the football club, which no fault of his own. He ain't signed yet, innit? So how much does the talking go? It looks like it will happen, but until he signed on the dotted line, weirder things have happened in football, as you know.
Yeah.
So hopefully it happens, man.
Yeah, I'm definitely cautiously optimistic about everything going on today, because it's like nothing is really done yet. So we still have to wait. But, with Merino, I know it's not the marquee signing that people were looking for, but he definitely gets us closer to the balance in midfield that we've been lacking for a long time. We just have never bought an 8. I don't know why we're allergic to 8s. It's like 10s and 6s. We're trying to make
defenders and goalkeepers, man.
Yeah, it's like we're trying to make, Kai Havertz into an 8. We're trying to make Rice into an 8. It'll just be nice to have somebody that naturally plays in that position, that has the technical quality and the physicality and all those things. To play at this level. And so, Jonathan is asking, does he start over Partey? I still think people are confused about what his position is. He's not a DM, so he wouldn't play in that same position to start over Partey. But if the question is Arteta going to prefer to keep riding with the Partey, Declan Rice, Odegaard midfield, or if he's going to switch over to Rice, Merino, and Odegaard, that's yet to be seen if and when he's signed. Which one would you go with?
It's an interesting one, man, because I wouldn't drop Declan Rice, but you can't rule out a reality where Merino and Partey are the ones ahead of him. I would.
I'm ruling that out.
I wouldn't rule out anything. I think it's improbable, but I don't think it's going to happen. But I can't rule out anything until I've seen it. It's a difficult one because I think when fit, Thomas Partey, Declan Rice, and Odegaard is something we was robbed of last season, and I would like to see that. I don't think Moreno comes in and he's first choice off the bat, but I think shortly before too long he would be that, purely because of his durability. You can bet on him being fit, away from getting injuries and whatnot. Partey seems like they have to wrap him up in cotton wool, and maybe Partey slightly becomes more of a squad player, a third choice, someone that comes off the bench, someone that's more of a rotationary option. So I'm inclined to believe Moreno and Declan Rice, and also Moreno goes over to that left-hand side. You can't rule out Declan Rice persisting in that left eight. Moreno could just be a squad player, I don't know. But you would imagine with Timber / Calafiori, with Moreno, and whoever he goes with between Trossard and Martinelli, probably Martinelli, we see some stability there. So I think it would be Moreno and Partey, man. Moreno and Declan Rice, sorry.
Yeah, I kind of think so too, but that's because my feeling on Merino and how good he is probably higher than a lot of other people. I think he's good enough to start for us, and I think he will. But some people are like, he is gonna just sit on the bench. I'm not 100% sure a Spanish player named Mikel is gonna be on the bench for Arsenal. Like, I think Arteta likes him. He's been dying to get a Real Sociedad player in this team for a long time, and he's finally got one. So I think he'll play quite a bit, especially because Partey, his fitness is not the greatest. Now, I will say that on rewatch of our game against Wolves, Partey was a lot better in the first half than I think I gave him credit for. And his problems in the second half definitely were more about maybe him not being at peak fitness. So, you know, you would imagine that if he were able to at least get up to peak fitness for, you know, the season, that midfield would still be quite good. I just still feel like Rice is not the best option at left 8. So to get people closer to the positions that they're supposed to be playing, I would probably go with Merino. That's without ever seeing it in real life, though. You know, so it could be a train wreck. You know, you never know. I don't think it will be. But Rizwan, thank you so much for your super chat. Rizwan says, people forget there is new profit and sustainability rule in place where clubs can't lose a certain amount of money. It's not just about KSE. This is true. You know, I know that we're just like, just throw the bag. Who cares? But when you watch Newcastle and Aston Villa and Chelsea doing these really like fraudulent deals at the beginning of the window, it's because they weren't in line with PSR. And I said this yesterday, but Arsenal are one of the teams that are the most vocal in the Premier League about teams being owned by nation states having to play within the same rules as everyone else. So we can't be out here just doing nonsense when we're the main ones, like out here snitching. Like, you know, we really can't, you know, so we have to be on our P's and Q's all the time. So I agree with what Rizwan says. And Diallo said, Uncle Partey is 49 years old. Accept it. He does look old in there. Shamaria says that Core Sport is saying Arsenal have returned for Victor Osimhen. Napoli are now asking for a fee close to 100 million for the striker. Arsenal could reach those figures. Do you believe in any of this?
At this point, like, if I don't see bids agreed, bids, terms agreed. It's long now with the Osimhen thing, you know. I don't listen. I can't rule out there being a shocker. You'd imagine an inside forward and a striker, if not this summer, is on the wish list of Arsenal. But we're going around the houses with the Osimhen stuff, and I'm inclined to believe. Do they believe he's value for money? Where you look at the wages he's on, allegedly doesn't, rightly so, he doesn't want to have a cut in wages and the price tag. And like you were just going on about PSR, is it? Are we that convinced in Osimhen? Now, I'm not saying Osimhen wouldn't be a good player. I think he's quality. But, you know, I think one thing that goes over people's head is that, you know, the modern day, you know, strikers don't just stand in the box and score goals. And if that was all Mikel Arteta wanted, then that's not necessarily a strong point of Gabriel Jesus, Kai Havertz or Trossard when he's played there, or even what we've seen with Eddie. How good is Osimhen's general play? I don't think it's bad. I think people do too much. But how convinced are we on the full package of him? I like him, but I'm not the one that makes the decision. And I'm typically pessimistic of anything that comes out of Italy. I know we've signed Kivi or Tomiyasu, and I'm missing someone, Calafiori, but seeing's believing now, man. Like, I just think journalists are recycling the same thing, man. It's long now.
Eddie's leaving, so link Arsenal to a striker.
Yeah, like, and that will get Arsenal fans horny, being linked with Arsenal.
Like that's pretty much what it feels like. And I think he's going to either end up at PSG or Chelsea at the end of the window
Exactly. Surely we're
anyway.
not at
So,
this moment in time with Osimhen, and
yeah,
everyone knew what was going on with him, and it's almost an open book to us football fans, let alone the footballing world. Surely Arsenal already know the kind of wages and they better yet the financial outlook it will take for to bring Osimhen. You know, again, Charles Watt said a few years ago, I think it got retweeted, that we actually at one point have had Osimhen's agents at London Coley. So it seems like one. I don't know. There could be a shock, but it seems like one that we know how much it will cost. So I'm not sure, man.
yeah.
I don't buy it. I want to be wrong though. 100% I want to be wrong.
And I try not to get too wrapped up in the Arsenal PR talk, but there is quite a bit coming out of the club about their trust in Jesus and how great he's looked in preseason. And, you know, Declan Rice is coming out saying we don't need a 9, we have Kai. I think everybody's on the same page, unless this is the biggest pump fake that I've ever seen. I think the club is trying to get behind Kai and Jesus being our number 9 options for this season. I don't think we're getting a striker. I'm pretty much like whatever on it. And being linked with Osimhen just feels very like what the media would do. Antonio says Arteta needs 16 to 17 players, which he can trust at the moment. He doesn't have that right now. Do you think he doesn't have that right now? Do you think he's not at 16 to 17?
I don't think he is, man. And again, who do you blame? You blame Mikel Arteta. In the same way I praise you for how you've built the squad and what you're doing. If you do not have a 16, 17, dare I say 20-man squad that you trust, you have to hold that, really, especially if we want to compete. And the bullish language he uses, you know, obviously you'd love to have 20. The man himself has said we haven't got one of the biggest squads. I think he likes the players, but when push comes to shove, like you saw in that December period or in the running at the end of the season, who is playing? You look in the whole campaign of all the minutes of the players that played, who played the minutes? You know, he says he liked Smith Rowe and all of that stuff, which I don't doubt. I'm not criticizing him using Smith Rowe, but look at the minutes. Eddie Nketiah, look at the minutes, let alone starts. I don't think he has that. I personally think there's about 14. Obviously, there's some that are probably in and around, but yeah.
Yeah. No, I get what you're saying. I think he'll be a lot closer if he were to get Merino and another winger that he really wants. I think he'll be so much closer. Those are such important signings.
Yeah, and I think Ethan's brought himself into being something like that. But
agreed.
Yeah, it's not big enough.
Diallo says, I only listen to Orny. Every other report is a guess. It's funny because Ornstein is considered probably the most reliable out of every journalist. But anytime he says something that people don't like, they're like, but he's not correct all the time. And I'm just kind of like, I only really remember him getting like one thing wrong. And that was us not being able to buy Pepe. I think that was like years ago. Like since then,
you can't win though, man.
Yeah, I'm like, I pretty much think that like if he says it, there's something to it. Like he's very careful about what he says, for sure. I was gonna ask you about it just flew right out of my head right then. Oh, Calafiori, because we haven't really spoken about it that much about Calafiori, Timber coming back into the team. What do you think the thought process is around those two and how they'll be used? You know, some people are convinced that Calafiori is going to play left center back. Some people are convinced he's going to play left back. You know, Timber, is he going to play left back? How do you think that they're going to be integrated into the team?
I mean, I think a lot of it will be dictated by probably when there's a fixture pile up and the games are coming thick and fast. Of course, form and injuries will play a part. But I think it's just good problems, man. We've got some great versatile players. I don't really want to see the partnership of Saliba and Gabriel disrupted because I think a lot of people fail to understand the stability that's provided. And not just that, the same players kind of playing week in, week out has allowed us to get here. Obviously, we need rotation. And Arteta said it in small little sly ways. He's like, where you look at Gabriel, Benjamin White, and obviously Saliba, they've done well. They're very durable players. And, you know, you don't want to rest players for the sake of it. But there's times where you have to. And we've been quite fortunate generally over the last 2 years to have a clean ride with injuries. That won't always be the case. But yeah, man, especially where Timber and California are concerned, it's lovely to see, really. You know, again, I don't think Zinchenko's a terrible player. He's a liability defensively, and the better we get as a team, his pros are not outweighing his cons at this moment. So bring them. I don't know how fit they are. You know, Timber did get some minutes off the bench. He looked strong in preseason, then he was kind of rested. California, I'm not sure if he's up to speed tactically or, you know, fitness wise. I actually think Zinchenko will play against Aston Villa, but I'm keen to see either or sooner rather than later. And may the best man win, really. You know, and that goes for everyone in defense. You can't afford to slip off. There's people and pressing for your spot. And that's the one place I'm actually cool that generally our defensive third, because got some very sexy general options there, whether it's California, White, Timber, Saliba, technically Ramsdale and Raya in goal as well. The defensive third were decent. Kivior and Zinni are still here as well. For however long, I don't know. But I'm cool with that, man.
Yeah, same. I'm not too stressed out about it. I do, like you, have a little feeling that Zinchenko will start against Villa.
You just got to pray, man.
And I'm just like, please, no. But you know, the Villa thing is giving very much by all means necessary. I don't care how we do it, just win. Like, we can't lose to them 3 times in a row. It's a no for me. I will not be there. Lynn says, I've started to lose interest. I've started to lose interest in Arteta because he knows what we need, and the PR has been so much this transfer window, and I don't think Arsenal have the money, or if they have, we need to spend. I don't know if it's just like an Arteta thing. I feel like it's like you were saying on your channel, it's like an everybody thing. If you are losing faith, I don't think it can just be Arteta. It has to be the whole everybody. They do know what we want or we need. I'm very not surprised, but because this is kind of the Arsenal way, is always to have 1 or 2 players that are obvious that we need in the team to get something over the line, and we don't do it. It does kind of feel like we're kicking the can again. But I don't know if it's just Arteta. I feel like it's everybody because they're all making the decisions, right? It's a collective thing. So
exactly.
Yeah, I would say it's everyone. I'm just gonna read some of these comments. Diallo says, "Thank you so much for your super chat. It's gonna be Zinchenko and inshallah." Yeah.
Damn.
Arteta does this thing where I think this will probably be my one thing about Mikel that I really don't like. Is he tends to trust players longer than he should. I think he wants to either coach them into being better players, or he wants to trust them and be that positive person for them, only for them to like let us down over and over again. I feel like let's not do that again with Zinchenko. Just play him at home, like against the bottom 10. You know, like I don't. Like, let's not force it. We don't need to. But yeah, I think it will be Zinni. And Fabio, you know, Kivior, Reece Nelson, Ramsdale, outgoings. Who's leaving? Who's not going to get a move? What do you think?
Boy, Ramsdale, I think the club are going to have to budge on their stance on him. It seems like the more as it goes on, a loan's his only way out. Hope to be wrong. Kivior, I'm not sure. You know, maybe it was tactically, but he was left out of the match day squad, obviously, against Wolves. And it feels for your sake, Kivior, that for you need to go get football. And for Arsenal, we need to bring money in. And, you know, unfortunately for you, Kivior, you on the best of days, you're not playing ahead of Gabriel or maybe even Tomiyasu as a centre-half if push games to shove and it was a must-win. Now you've got California, you know, another option. I think the only option Kivior's ahead of at left-back is probably Kieran Tierney. So, yeah, he needs to keep it moving, if I'm honest with you. Fabio Vieira, I like the player, but, like, beyond me liking how you are tactically, haven't really seen anything in it. You're lightweight. You're not really going to get a run of games or play in your natural position. I don't think Arteta trusts you off the ball, rightly so. I don't think you're good enough off it. Probably needs to go. You know, talk of loans, which is scary because you might not make it back from that. But where I look at Fabio Vieira and Reece Nelson, you know, especially off the basis that Fabio's played right wing, are you lot seen as inside forwards of sorts or options in that? So are we going to let you go without bringing in people to go with Eddie Nketiah and Smith Rowe? It doesn't fill me with confidence. Nelson, I mean, to be honest, there was a point in the summer, Nelson looked like he was one of the first to go through the door. And obviously, West Ham have moved away. Leicester are still linked with him, but apparently they're not keen to pay his wages. Ornstein, speaking of him, because you mentioned him earlier, he said on The Athletic that, you know, Reece Nelson's made his intentions clear to Arsenal. Do we let Nelson go without someone coming in? As we know, when everybody's fit, like last season, Nelson wasn't on the matchday squad, but he seems to be someone that is trusted on occasion. But they probably will need to be moved on. But realistically, with 10 days left, what's going to happen? I mean, the players and the agents don't make the decisions, but you're probably reliant on Ramsdale, Kivi, or Fabio Vieira, and any other name you said to be on the phone to their agent and put pressure on Arsenal and say, listen, I need to be somewhere I can play football. So, yeah, man, I don't know.
I think that's an interesting comment from Fabi saying, like, Kivior, I can see one of Juventus loans deal coming in. I can see the loan thing, but I don't think we should be doing loans for Kivior. It's either an obligation or just keep him as a backup. Like, there's the only point in moving him on is to get the fee and to get the fee early. Otherwise, we're just shortening the group of players that we have there, with knowing that, you know, Tomiyasu has injury problems, so does Zinchenko. So, you know, it needs to be more than a loan, but Fabio Vieira needs to look at Cole Palmer from last year off the right and model himself off of that. I like a creative player on the wing if they do it right. I think when Emil was playing off of the left, like a couple of years ago, it worked, even though he's not a natural winger. The problem that is Fabio Vieira, and it'll be a problem whether he plays at the 10, at the 8, or on the wing, is he just doesn't impose himself on the game. And that's, to me, not a tactical thing. That's a mentality thing. I just, you know, Cole Palmer, you know, and I know it's like this Arsenal channel, so he's a really good player, and he makes shit happen. When he gets on the ball, he drops deep, receives the ball, you know, switches the play, you know, early balls in between the lines to his forwards. Like, Fabio just doesn't do anything when he gets out there.
They're better ball carriers than him. You know, you look at Palmer, you look at Foden. Obviously, Bernardo Silva is better than him, and all those names that I said there are better than Fabio Vieira. But they don't lose. One, they don't get barged off the ball too much, and their ball carrying ability is good. I've never really seen that from Fabio Vieira. Now, I actually think he's a good ball carrier and a good ball dribbler. But me using my own eyes, I think he's genuinely one of those players. In training, he probably looks so amazing. On a match day, as you said, the man don't impose himself. And I think it's harsh because, you know, you can look at a couple of these players and say, oh, you need a run. You need to, you know, a run of games to get up to speed. But realistically, when's that coming? Cool, we give you a run of games. That could affect what we do. And who deserves to be left out for Fabio Vieira? If it was a case, and not just him, a lot of players, if it was a case of when we were back to when we finished 8th and we was rubbish and it was probably just Bukayo Saka or 2 players at max that were excelling and we weren't fighting for a league, then cool, people can get opportunities. But now we're actually, you know, fighting for something and every point counts. And 9 times out of 10, these players are playing very well. Like Saka was one of our better players against Wolves. It wasn't an amazing game from Saka beyond the cross and the goal. Fabio's not even doing something like that. And it's sad because there has been moments from Fabio. He's not even, I think it's disrespectful to Trossard, but he's not even in the Trossard realm where, you know, we're saying Trossard should get more starts and Trossard can start games and impact. Trossard can come off the bench and impact. It's not happening for Fabio. And it just feels like a continuous circle with Fabio. You look promising off the bench. You might get a start. You get injured, kind of like what we're seeing with him now. And it's back to square one, man, essentially. So it's long.
Agreed. It's a tough one, but you know, you have to loan him if you're not going to use him. And we know how Arteta is. He's not going to use certain players. So if you're going to Emil him, you might as well get him on a loan, you know, as soon as possible. And that's coming from somebody who has held on to stocks for a long time.
I like Fabio. Like you said, I got stocks in him, but I got stocks in my club, innit? And even that, like as messed as it sounds, like you need to go. If we could sell you, I'd do it. Not that I think we get money, but the bodies, man. We're talking about squad depth. We've let a bunch of people go, and yeah, we'll probably bring in a couple. But would I feel 100% comfortable with Fabio Vieira leaving? Not necessarily the player, but the body. I'm not sure, man.
Yeah, I think I would because I don't think he'll play, and he just, it's just a body. I feel like last season we had a lot of bodies and we were like, we have a deep bench, but it just ended up being the same 13, 14 people playing. I think I would be okay with him going, especially with Ethan in the squad. I'd even probably play Miles Lewis-Skelly in midfield over him. Like it's just he doesn't do
That
enough.
tells you where his stock is, man. Sad.
Yeah,
A
it's
30
just
million pound buy.
yeah. Diallo, thank you so much for your super chat. Says, why does no one want to spend big on Rambo? Dusted. His profile is just damaged. Like it's just damaged, and it's just what it is, you know. So a loan with an option is probably the best that we can do with him, and then we'll replace him with that Juan Garcia guy. That feels like it's very much so the plan. So yeah, there's 208 of you guys in here. We started a little bit later, so but we are going to end it now. But you can always rewind and go back to the beginning and see what we said then. And then also remember that we did a live stream right before this on DG's channel, so you guys can go over there. How can they get to your channel?
Just type in Deluded Gooner on YouTube, man. I'm sure it will come up, and appreciative of you lot who care to do such, man. Thanks for having me, just as usual.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about like everything. So yeah, make sure you guys go back to that. If you're just joining now, go back to the beginning of this, and then you guys can see what we talked about, because we spoke about the Sterling stuff and, you know, forwards and, you know, bringing, you know, Edu. We spoke about a lot of stuff. So go to the beginning. And before you guys leave, make sure you guys do like the video and subscribe to the channel.
It's free.
On your way
Do
out.
it.
Yep, it's a free way to support the channel and get the videos out there. And I also released the most recent Canon Club earlier on this morning with me and Harry, and that will serve as like your preview for actual preview for Villa, so you guys can go look at that too. And yeah, the next time we'll talk is tomorrow, and then on to the weekend and on to Villa. So yeah, make sure you guys smash the likes, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Bye guys.
Come on.